Hello and welcome to the podcast today. Today, I'm very excited to speak with Kisha Reynolds. Kisha Reynolds is a certified hypnotherapist. She's a life coach and the founder of 321 Deep Sleep Hypnotherapy. Can't wait to learn more about that. Kisha's work is devoted to helping people live healthier, more balanced lives by healing them from the inside out, starting with the subconscious and the quality of our sleep. As a leading advocate for body focused repetitive behaviors, Kisha blends deep professional expertise with lived experience, bringing compassion, awareness, and real tools to conditions often misunderstood and rooted in stress, anxiety, and nervous system overload. Through sleep hypnotherapy and trauma informed coaching, she helps clients quiet the mind, release compulsive behaviors, rebuild confidence, and finally experience deep restorative rest. Beyond her hypnotherapy practice, Kisha also creates transformational retreats through Drink That Eat This Travels, weaving subconscious healing with meaningful global experiences. Passionate about connection and community, she uses her voice to educate, empower, and remind us that true wellness begins when we feel safe, supported, and well rested. Thank you so much for being here, Kisha, today. I can't wait to see what comes up in our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, to begin with, let's talk a little bit about Kisha. Kisha, your journey and what has brought you to where we are today.
Yes. My journey started many years ago. I am and have been a lifelong sufferer of body focused repetitive behaviors, or the acronym for that is BFRB, which is a mouthful to say, I know. But it started, when I was about six, and it was due to some pretty severe bullying that I went through for about a good, 4 to 5 years. And at the time when it started, the term BFRBs had not been coined yet. That didn't come around until later in like the mid 90s. So at that time, I just really didn't know what was going on. I just knew that initially I started out with, biting my nails. Okay. But this was more biting down to more so the cuticle, like pervasive. This wasn't your average, oh, I have like a hangnail, I want to kind of get out. And because the term body focused repetitive behaviors or how to be able to work with them had not been created yet and would not be created until the 90s, it largely went unchecked. And it's not uncommon that if you suffer from one, that you will develop others. Okay. So one of the more, I guess, popular ones, or ones that people know more about, would be trichotillomania, which basically is hair pulling. Okay. And that came on board right around the time when I was about maybe like 15 or 16 years old. And that's the one that, stayed the most. And I say that because, we mentioned this, prior to coming on air, that many times, people feel that because we do this kind of work that we are not or don't still, have, issues, or it doesn't touch our lives. And we do. And I do this work because I do know what it's like, and I do want to help. But because I have lived it, I know what has worked for me. And I do this to be able to help others, and to just explain a little bit about first, kind of what body focused repetitive behaviors are and what they aren't. They aren't bad habits or self sabotage. Most people think, okay, why can't you just stop? But they are nervous system strategies. They emerge when the body needs regulation faster than the mind can provide it. Okay. And then you start to do it. But unfortunately, it's not the healthiest thing because, for example, if we want to take, for example, trauma, okay, trauma, it looks like a loss of control. So in that moment, the body focused repetitive behavior, it momentarily will regulate that control. Okay. But
It's like a coping mechanism is right.
exactly. But then what happens is, in doing that, because it doesn't teach you a safer way to be able to deal with that, to regulate your emotions, what it does is that then relief, then that reinforces the loop. So then you do this over, you begin to rely on that, somewhat of like I guess like a for the nervous system, like anxiety, it may spike an urge, urge spikes, okay? And repetition, okay, with the pulling or the skin picking or whatever subtype of the body focused repetitive behavior that you are delving in, okay, that repetition that lowers that arousal temporarily of being able to calm that basically. But what the nervous system then learns about it is that's a shortcut. Okay, instead of learning other ways to be able to cope, okay, and so on and so on. So, what I do now is I focus on bringing awareness. And this ties right into when we were talking about your somatic work, okay, of bringing awareness to the body, that emotion, okay, and then being able to make healthier suggestions. And for me, that looks like rewiring using different hypnotic suggestions and imagery, other healthier ways of being able to bring back choice to that individual that I'm working with, okay, and giving them other options as opposed to staying with those options or those things they have been doing that really, really harm them. For example, like rumination. Okay, when we're constantly just think, 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 think. And then because of that, now it's interrupted your sleep. Okay. And we had talked about sleep. Okay. Now it's interrupting the sleep. And see, when you sleep, that's the body's way of being able to reset. Okay. But when you are still firing on all cylinders, I mean, because sleep deprivation, it causes not it's not just the fatigue. Okay, it keeps that amygdala, it keeps it in that overactive drive. Again, that's that think, 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 think. It reduces, your prefrontal regulation, being able to regulate that. And it increases, sensory seeking and compulsive behaviors such as skin picking, that also goes with like the grinding of the teeth, biting inside the cheek, biting the fingernails pervasively, okay? And he lowers your emotional tolerance, for the next day. So that means that something happens because now your tolerance is lower because you're not able to fall on something else. That's the very first thing you go to. The very time it's like, okay, now I've relearned this toxic behavior, okay, which could go back to overthinking and therefore creating that cycle because overthinking, it's interesting, here I think in America we pride ourselves of being able to, and I know I'm guilty of this as well, of saying and feeling like, okay, I by the time I come to a decision of what to I have done, I have already, thought 5 steps ahead of me, 5 steps behind me, 5 steps to the east and 5 steps to the west. Okay. But that's not good. That's not good. That's not
Yes, let's
good.
let's pause for a moment there, Keisha, because that is completely counterintuitive and disconnected from our bodies, which
Yes.
which in fact hold the right answer for us. So, if I can summarize for a moment, because you provided a lot of wonderful information there, and as you're talking, things started to make sense to me and within myself. I don't believe that I ever had a BFRB that was very
Mm-hmm.
severe that needed, but I know that I had little things growing up like OCD where I would
Mm-hmm.
turn the
Very
lights
related.
on and off like three, four
Mm-hmm.
times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
also picking at my eyelashes. Is that
Mm-hmm.
a part of
Yes,
it?
that
Not to the
is.
point that I fully lost all of
Right.
my eyelashes,
But
but
that's one.
my eyelashes are very, very thin. And
Mm-hmm.
even to this day, I find when I have a stressful trigger, and I haven't yet pinpoint exactly what it is. It may just be a stress in general, but I go to my eyelashes and I have to
Mm-hmm.
constantly, draw myself away. So,
Mm-hmm.
so these are some other small things that we, as you're talking, I'm also wondering, like, what are some other things that people generally do when their nervous system is not regulated? They're using as coping mechanisms. We know the traditional that they're moving toward drugs and alcohol and those kinds of things. Can you think of other things that you could fill us in on? Because this might be kind of triggering for some people. Hang on a second. You know what? I always do this when I'm stressed. For
Mm-hmm.
me, eating was huge,
Mm-hmm.
like eating
Mm-hmm.
large quantities of a food
Mm-hmm.
that filled that emotional void. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything else you can think of?
Oh, yeah, two things.
Okay.
And I know that we have all done this at one time or another. Someone asks you what is wrong. I'm fine.
Mhm.
I'm fine.
Right.
You're not fine, but that's what we go to is I'm fine.
Stuff
Okay.
it down. Stuff it
Yep,
down.
yep,
Have
yep,
to deal
yep,
with it later.
yep,
And this is when
yep.
that compulsion comes
Compartment
out.
compartmentalization. I'm
Right.
fine. Okay. And or perfectionism. Okay.
Yes.
It leads into perfectionism, that
Yes.
all or nothing way of thinking. Okay.
Hmm.
Like, and that was something that I dealt with a lot,
Myself too. Yeah.
perfectionism.
Hmm.
Okay. And even now I have to physically say to myself, because it's not enough for me to think it, I have to physically say it. Okay. You know what? I had three things that I wanted to get done on my list today. And I only got one done. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay that I got
Hmm.
the one thing done. I was one, Laura, that I would literally, but when I wake up, I would have a list. One of my girlfriends would she would laugh at me because I would have 20 things on a list that I want to do, right? And she would say, okay, now you're only going to get maybe two of those done, right? And then it would be like, oh no, no, no. I'm going to get all like if I don't get 20, I'm definitely going to get like 15 done, making bargains with myself and then feeling
Hmm.
terrible about
Yes.
myself when I don't at least hit that 15, even if not 20, if I don't hit those 15 things.
Hmm.
And it has taken me to say to myself, and now I physically say it, okay, I only got one thing done, but that's okay.
Hmm.
I will live to fight another day and I will do something else tomorrow. And if I don't get the other one done, even if I get something or half of it done, it is still an accomplishment. We have to take into consideration what we feel is an accomplishment.
Hmm.
Okay. Sometimes accomplishment is literally just waking up in the morning because we aren't promised tomorrow, and I don't know in terms of where a lot of your listeners are from a spiritual capacity, but I am a believer, so I do believe in Christ, and I do give gratitude and I give thanks in the morning because it's kind of like, okay, God, let's ready, set, go. You got me this puff bar, my eyes are open, my feet
Hmm.
may are getting ready to hit the floor. So we'll go from there. you know,
Absolutely.
go
My
from there.
grandmother, my grandmother was so I'm more spiritual as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to like following
Yeah.
like traditional God, but I
Mm-hmm.
grew up
Mm-hmm.
in the church and my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother used to say every morning, "Thank you God for this beautiful
Yes.
day,"
Yes.
and every time we said grace and all of these things and no matter who we are and what we believe in, I believe gratitude,
Oh,
it unlocks I
that's the
think Melanie Beattie
frequency.
said, yeah, the fullness of life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the more gratitude that we put out into the universe, the more that it comes back at us. And we don't do
Yes.
that with expectation. We do that just
Right.
because we recognize the magnificence of being alive and
Yes.
the beautiful blessing that it is. And even on those difficult days or those days where, we don't want to get out of bed and all of those things, gratitude can help propel us forward.
Exactly. Exactly. And also knowing that, you know what you are experiencing, there is someone out there who has
Hmm.
had it so much more worse than what you
Yes.
have, but yet they're putting that next foot forward. And it's
Hmm.
kind of like if that's very humbling. That
Hmm.
is very humbling when you think of something like that, that where you are, there may be someone who does not have what you have, but yet they're still paying it forward. They're still putting it out there. It's very humbling, very humbling,
Absolutely.
very humbling.
Absolutely. And I believe that all love is rooted in self-love. So the
Yes,
sooner that we come to find love and gratitude, we often start for those external things, but then as we begin to bring it inward, it begins to bring us a whole new sense of joy and purpose because we
absolutely.
we recognize the magnificence of each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
I never, I always tell this story because my partner always says, you never pass a mirror that you don't look at, Laura. And I'll tell you the story behind that. It's not that I have this giant ego and I, love the way I look. It's because when I was younger, I rarely ever looked in a mirror. And when I did, it was very quick glancing. And the reason why was because I did not like the being that I saw in the mirror. So I did everything that I did. I had a lot of self-deprecating thoughts and self-talk and all of these things. And so whenever I looked in the mirror, I had to kind of confront that that I didn't like seeing. So, fast forward 30 years of, of work and all of these things, I don't pass when I pass a mirror, I do look. Like I don't pass a mirror without looking. And I am proud to say, you know what? I'm beautiful. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks because
Right.
I truly know it. And beauty begins on the inside.
It
So
does.
we are in this society that values this external beauty and it's just so superficial. When we really begin to connect at a heart-centered level, we see that each and every one of us have our own journey, that each and every one of us has suffered with something or in the past. And if we have this more of an open-hearted, grateful attitude, if you will,
Mhm.
then we can all live and learn and connect with each other as opposed to,
Absolutely.
having some sort of like competitive type nature.
I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, okay, so that kind of went off on a bit of a
That's
bit of a
fine.
spin, but that happens. That just happens. So let's talk a little bit more, Keisha, about I think what I feel like what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about sleep and then will hypnotherapy then begin to, when we discuss that, that will cover a little bit about the BFRBs and the sleep together. Is that
Sure.
fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sleep because this is definitely one thing in my journey that I took for granted. I remember being when I was going through a separation and my kids were much younger. And I was stressed to the nines, working
Hmm.
across the city, commuting at a job that just felt like it sucked the soul out of me every day. I remember coming home and I had these giant bags under my eyes, and my son might have been 12 at the time. And I remember saying to him, honey, do you see these bags? I don't know what to do, just kind of being beside myself. And he said, Mom, you just need to get more sleep. And I was like, oh my gosh, this kid is so right. Like, what am I missing in my life? It's sleep.
It's sleep. It's
And
sleep.
I think a lot of us take it for granted.
We do. And the thing of it is that um, we shouldn't. Okay. And it took me a while to get to realize this that it's linked to so many things. Do
Hmm.
you know that your blood pressure won't even return to normal if you consistently don't get sleep? Okay. It
Hmm.
will, and this is important, especially if your listeners suffer with hypertension, and even if they're taking medicine, okay, and it's regulated, you need restorative sleep. It resets the body. It drops the cortisol, it resets the body. You need the sleep. And
You're,
I'm go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, because you started talking about the physiological effects. Let's go into
Yes.
that because a lot of people have no idea that you're not, just sleeping to close your eyes. You talked about cortisol, you talked about blood pressure. We know detoxification happens
Mm-hmm.
while we're
Mm-hmm.
sleeping, and detoxification is imperative for moving toxins through the gut and out of our system. And if we don't have that, then we get a backup of toxins, and your gut is the seat of your essentially your nervous system and your brain health and all of these things, your immune system. So it's one of those important things again that we're taking for granted. What else, Keisha, can you add to that physiologically?
Even just healing, just, even just physically healing.
Hmm.
Okay. I remember I had, and this is, kind of minor. I had a cut that I had on my arm. Okay. And I noticed that when I wasn't really sleeping, that cut didn't really heal that well. It took a while, but I
Hmm.
remembered even just going to bed, and just getting a good 5 to 6 hours. When I woke up the next day, I started to see the scab, started to see it kind of scab over. So that shows you that the body resets not only emotionally, mentally, but physically,
Hmm.
okay, as well. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and if that happens to a cut, can you imagine to your entire system?
Hmm.
How when you sleep, how it will restore. One of the things, and I will tell you that when I'm usually in combined, like doing coaching and hypnotherapy, okay, with this, especially with hypnotherapy, we usually start out with imagery. Okay, and we have hypnotic suggestions. And one of the things I say, especially when we're doing working with in terms of like stress transitions and sleep, okay, one of the things that I actually say is that internal stability replaces external uncertainty.
Hmm.
That's one of the
Like
hypnotic
that.
suggestions, and that sleep deepens as predictability, lessens. Okay.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that I focus on, so I really, really believe this stuff, and it returns, the transitions that integrate without overwhelm. Okay, different transitions they integrate without overwhelming, meaning without overwhelming and overstimulating your system. So those are some of the hypnotic suggestions that I say to my clients. And then they replay that over and over.
Beautiful. Yeah, I could see. I mean, there that speaks to the deeper levels of the nervous system, right? That
Yes, yes,
subconscious. A lot of
yes.
people, a lot of people aren't aware that 90% of what we hold is actually held subconsciously. So we think with our minds that we have, say, control over something, but when it really comes down to it, it's the deeply rooted subconscious that really controls our entire lives, really, the way that we
Exactly.
react and all of these things. So, you know, part of my journey has been definitely getting myself out of that fight or flight, and
Yes,
getting
yes.
into that rest and digest, that state whereby my body can repair and heal. And for so many in our population, we have been conditioned that fight or flight is normal,
It's
and
not.
and it's not, and our bodies can't regenerate. We have more chronic illness and disease than we have ever seen, and we have now it's spilling over into our children and our younger
Mm-hmm.
generations.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
to me, having the journey that I've had, it makes complete and total sense why all of these things have happened over these decades. And so it becomes, and you mentioned this earlier, you said physical, mental, emotional, and then the other body that I work with is the spiritual. And so
Yes,
we are these beings, these whole beings, but we often don't look at the sum of all of our parts.
exactly.
So, a lot of people think physical body, physical body. Yes, we need to learn about our physical bodies, treat and nurture them with what serves us as individuals, but we also need to continue to work into the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of our being. Because in
Yes,
my health journey, until I looked into that mental, emotional, the physical could not be repaired, until I looked into the spiritual, the fact that I was so disconnected from my purpose and life and gratitude and all of
mm-hmm.
these things. We are these like simple but complex beings because we are so uniquely individual.
Exactly.
And this is where I
Exactly.
feel that, the framework of modern medicine, it's continuing to show how it is failing for most people. I mean, I always say that modern medicine saved my life when I was in acute pain, trauma, sepsis, when I was
Mm-hmm.
dealing with that. Modern medicine saved my life. I am grateful for it all the time and use
Yes.
it when I need to. However, it is holistic practices, health, tools, food, supplements, these kinds of things, as well as my practices that have helped me to find that internal balance, stability, and health, optimal health that I had been seeking for so many years. And that's why, that magical pill theory, like,
That doesn't work.
There isn't
It's not
one.
there. Yeah, it's
We
not even
we
there. It's
have
not
to
consistent.
work. I'm sorry, but
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
have to work at it. Like we didn't come here to be fed a pill and life to be grand. I mean,
Thank you.
when I was on my SSRI, sure I was fed a pill and I was kind of
Right.
walking around like a bit of a zombie most of the time, not
Yeah.
feeling anything and whatever. So, I mean, those and that for some people is probably um, a little bit upsetting to think that there's no magical, you're going to come for one session, you're going to be
Hmm.
cured, you're going to take one pill, you're going to be cured. Like it's not like that. We are so
No.
complex.
Right. And you mentioned something, you were talking about 30 or 40 years in terms of experience something. So it's like, can we talk about transgenerational? Okay, how this
Hmm.
is passed down.
Yeah.
Okay, how this is
Hmm.
passed down. Okay, to the point where if the mother, has always been held with like in trauma,
Hmm.
okay, anxiety, okay, and that's passed down in Europe to her child, and that child more than likely has a higher percentage of holding that when
Hmm.
that anxiety, okay, when they then come into the world. So it's like taking a look at that and really being able to honor ourselves and give back to ourselves, because in helping yourself, you help the other generation, whether you really
Yes.
know it or not. That's so very important. And just for the love of God, getting away from this thing about we must multitask with everything. What?
Yes.
Where are
Yes.
we going? I mean, it's just like everything's multitasking. And then with multitasking brings more devices, and more devices brings more devices. Now I have Instagram open. I have Instacart open because I have to order groceries on Instacart,
Shop.
but
Yeah.
yet I'm missing the reel on Instagram. And oh, yeah, somebody connected me on Messenger. And now I got to go and check in on Facebook. And I don't know, I heard something else on TikTok. So, I mean, before you know it, now you have Instagram open, Instacart open, and you're trying to get an Uber ride. It's just like, stop.
Yeah, it's like
One
this
thing.
this chronic but it's that chronic need for that instant gratification
Yes,
and
yes,
and something to take us away from what really is, which is ourselves in the present moment. Because
exactly.
for so many of us we're holding so much that we don't know how to deal with. For
Right.
me, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, those kinds of things. And so I would do that. I would chronically multitask. I would start 70 tasks and I might finish 30 of them after like so
Same here.
long because I had
Same here.
yeah like and it doesn't work, right? It's
Right.
that distraction. So no matter how we distract ourselves with food or drugs or these BFRBs or
Yes.
or Instagram and all these, like no matter what, we have to recognize that it's a distraction. And
Yes.
when we recognize that this is a distraction, it's distracting us from something. And so, what is it that we are not willing to see or acknowledge? Likely because it's painful, because we
Right.
as humans try to avoid physical, emotional pain, right? We're
Right.
trying our
Right.
best to avoid these things. But what if, and I say this a lot with clients, what if that pain was there as a messenger and trying to tell you something? What if
Yes.
those emotions that are manifesting in your body as physical pain, because emotions are energy in motion, and when we don't feel them, then they're going to store. They're going to
Exactly.
store in the tissues and the organs, all of these things, and eventually
Mm-hmm.
manifest in different ways. And so, if we can listen to them early on, we can learn how to do it, then we can avoid some of these major illnesses
Mm-hmm.
and chronic issues that we're finding in society. So, whether we're young or we're old, I feel that this applies or this could apply.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about. So we started into the physiology of sleep, and then we went off on a tangent again. I do that. Hopefully, good information for those listening. So we talked about the physiology of sleep. Tell us a little bit about maybe I find interesting how many clients do you see that or what do clients generally present with for like issues with their sleep? What are people coming to you for with sleep issues?
It's actually, for the most part, it's regulating the nervous system. So by able to kind of regulate that nervous system allows him to be able to feel safe. So using hypnotherapy to retrain the nervous system to feel safe at night.
Okay.
That is a big one, because for many people, especially those, who have experienced trauma, anxiety, or even chronic stress, nighttime also, it feels very, very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, there are few distractions, which means less control and more internal awareness. Okay. So, what
Yes.
hypnotherapy does is it helps the nervous system to update outdated messages. For example, like, I need to stay alert. Do you need to? No, you don't really need to stay alert. It's time to shut down. It's time to shut
Mm-hmm.
down. Okay. Rest is unsafe. Is it really? No, it's actually quite safe. In fact, you're unsafe if you don't rest. Okay. If I let go, something bad will happen. No, nothing's going to happen, but you're going to go to sleep. You're going to get the
Mm-hmm.
rest that you need. You're going to get up the next day and we're going to tackle this again tomorrow. That's all that's going to happen. So through imagery and suggestion, the body then learns a new association, and that begins to look like, night equals safety and sleep equals restoration.
Right. So it begins to change that cycle that we talked
Rewiring.
about, right?
Yes, it's
Yes.
rewiring the subconscious, as one sleeps. And that's one of the things that has drawn me to hypnotherapy because it literally rewires, okay, that pathway. It really does. That neural pathways. It really rewires it, and that's what draws me to it.
Right. And I believe more and more science is proving, and I mean I believe that a lot of things were evident for a long time in many other um, societies and different philosophies like Eastern philosophies and things, but science is beginning to prove more and more and more that that nervous system is at the seat of our health or
Yes.
our dis-ease. So there are all these different ways, which I love. I have personally never experienced hypnotherapy. Now, that being said, one of my main shamanic teachers, who I love, who I interviewed a little while ago, Pete Bernard, on the podcast, he also does hypnosis. So there
Mm-hmm.
may have been some hypnosis suggested stuff while I was
Yeah,
learning. I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But I've never actually had a hypnotherapy session. But I just love that there are so many different avenues, and that's what I try to present on the podcast. So many different avenues toward healing when we take the initiative and empower ourselves to look outside of the box,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
box doesn't just have one thing in it. Or sorry, outside of it, right? It's not just, okay, everybody needs to now do hypnotherapy. Everybody
Right.
now needs to do energy healing. It's like,
Right.
no, there are all of these different options, but
That you
if
have to
you're
choose from.
inside the box, you're not going to see them.
Right. Right. And it is. It's kind of getting outside of yourself and opening yourself up. It's like telling someone with insomnia, okay, like stop thinking. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like oftentimes like that backfires. And
Right.
so like you were saying about the box. So that equates to hypnotherapy is that okay, we don't fight the thoughts. We understand thoughts come.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we change the relationship to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that we do. So in hypnosis, thoughts are allowed to slow naturally. Okay. They're allowed to drift or move to the background. Okay. So the mind stops trying to control or stay in that box. They stops
Mm-hmm.
trying to control sleep. Okay. Which, paradoxically, allows sleep to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is especially, effective for anybody who has anxiety driven insomnia or like we're saying perfectionism as it's related to sleep issues or overthinking at bedtime. Like you hear people, my mind just won't shut off, that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. Hypnotherapy, it works, and to your credit, what you do, it works at the somatic level, okay, by helping the body release tension
Mm-hmm.
and emotional residue, okay, that interferes with rest. When the body settles, sleep then follows.
And what a beautiful process that is. That
Yes,
drifting off into a nice, peaceful slumber without that, that busy mind, that tense body, all of these things, right? And this is what we all
exactly.
strive for and want. However, for many of us, it's elusive. So I love that this is yet another option. So let's talk a little bit about, you've mentioned it a little bit here, but let's talk a little bit about a hypnotherapy session and what, when somebody comes to you and you decide that hypnotherapy is appropriate for them, just to give them a brief idea of what goes
Sure.
on in a hypno session.
So the first thing that we do is we, talk about what you're there for. Okay. But prior to going into that, I like to do a really comprehensive deep dive into letting people know exactly what it is. Okay. So basically, we have all been in hypnosis. We just may not have known what it was. We have all been in hypnosis. So I'm going to give you two examples. For one, have you ever been in a car and you're driving, like, say, from point A to point B? And you may be, one of the days you might be listening to a song or you may be in deep thought, but all you know is that you're able to arrive at your destination from point A and you don't know how you got to point B. You just kind of get there and you're like, okay, well, I know I went down some roads, made some left turns, right turns, maybe stopped at a light or two. But if we fall back on that, we call it like muscle memory. Okay. But it's because your state of focus at the time was whatever you were thinking about or whatever you were listening to. That was a narrow state of focus. So that is a form of hypnosis. Okay. Also, if you happen to be watching television and then someone were to walk up behind you and say you don't really know who it is in the beginning until maybe they call your name a couple times. And that's probably large in part because your focus, that narrowed state of focus, was on whatever you're watching. Okay.
Okay.
So honestly, that's all hypnosis is. It is a narrow state of focus, but in except for when you're working with me, my voice becomes that narrow state of focus. So it's no longer what you're thinking about as you are in, driving to your next destination. It's no longer what you're looking at on TV. Okay. My voice is that narrow state of focus. Okay. So also too, dispelling, myths. So people sometimes feel like you're going to like go unconscious in hypno. You're not going to go unconscious. It actually is impossible, to be honest with you. And that is because you're not actually asleep to begin with. So, we all see the movies where, they do the famous countdown like five, four,
Hmm.
three, two, one. And there's the snap,
Yeah.
deep sleep. Okay. So yes, that does happen. Okay. But that is a signal to your subconscious that countdown and that snap, that deep sleep, that's communicating with your subconscious. It's not actually a deep sleep. Now you will be deeply relaxed, okay, and you will be a feeling of maybe kind of going in and out, like how you feel like you drift in and out when you're just about to go to sleep. You're kind of in and out between that state of like sleep and awake, and there you feel that way, okay. And some people may feel a little bit tingly, but you are not completely asleep. You can't be because I'm saying things to you and that's going into your subconscious. Okay. Now, I do have people that sometimes when they come to me, they will kind of zonk out. Okay. And that's fine too, because what I'm saying is still being getting into their subconscious. And on top of that, when we get into the actual session piece of it, not when we're talking about why the client is there, but when we're actually getting into the point where I'm doing the hypnotic imagery and the suggestions, I record that. Okay. And then I send that back to the client. Okay.
Beautiful.
And what happens is to see a full transformative experience takes anywhere from 8 to 12 sessions. So
Okay.
this goes back to it being this is not a one and done type situation. This is gradual.
Hmm.
Usually the halfway mark is right around that fourth or fifth session. You start to kind of feel that change on the inside. Now, the way to really kind of gut punch that, if you will, to feel that a lot quicker is listening to the recordings on a nightly basis. Now,
Hmm.
when I say nightly, we all have lives. So I know that not everybody is going to be able to listen to a 20-minute recording or 20 minutes to half an hour recording 7 days out of the week. Life happens. But if you commit to at least listening to it 3 to 4 times even out of the week, you will begin to feel that change quicker. So what that looks like is that you may begin to experience that in 3 to 4 sessions as opposed to 4 to 5. Okay. And
Keisha,
then
can I ask
sure,
you a question there?
sure,
Just while you say that,
sure.
can people listen to that recording while they are sleeping as well?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of clients that they will put that on. They kind of go to bed, like they will use that. They go to sleep with that, and it still plays because what happens is what I like to do, as opposed to just my voice, I do try to layer it over some soothing music, or something like that, so that it will really kind of relax you, and it's a combination of the induction, along with, going into the imagery and then into the hypnotic suggestions. But that's also layered over something that's, very soft and melodic that will kind of ease you into that and kind of make you feel very, very relaxed. So yes, yes. But
Beautiful.
but one thing to be clear, this is not something that you listen to on your way home from work. You don't listen to this and
Sure.
drive, okay? Because it is designed to make you go to sleep, and we don't want any issues while you are driving, okay?
Sure.
And to that point, if you're listening to it in the beginning when you wake up in the morning, okay, or if you are listening to it and you know that shortly after you have something that you have to do and jump in a car like a couple minutes later to go take your child to dance class, or you have, somewhere that you have to be, that's not a good option either, because it's not good to listen to this and then go right and do something else. You want to give yourself time to come back into yourself. Give it at least about, yeah, maybe about a good 15 minutes or so, before you decide to, kind of chase down those titans of industry. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just relax a bit. Drink
Okay.
some water. I always encourage people have something to drink there, okay? Because drinking water does bring you back into your body. It
Okay.
does bring you back.
And the reason that I asked that is because, you said, well, you don't have to do it 7 days a week, but let's be honest here. Like, if we are committed to ourselves
Yes.
and to our path and to our journey and really wanting to release,
Change.
yes, and
Hmm.
create change, then we all sleep, or we at least try to. So we
Right.
all have that 30 minutes,
Yes.
whether it's waking time or while we're drifting off to sleep or whatever it
Right.
is, if we're committed to those changes. And this is where, as a coach, and I'm the same, we hold people accountable. And
Accountable.
that's why
Right.
working with someone who in that type of capacity helps to hold you accountable, because sure, 7 days a week, every week, okay, totally understand. But if you're committing to 2 days a week, but you sleep 7 days a week, how much do
That's
you really
not
want this change?
exactly. So, I mean, I would encourage people at least, a good, 5 days out of the week, 4 to 5 days out of the week. I say 3 to 4 because I know life happens, but,
Sure.
if you're not listening 7 days, at least a good 4 to 5, is,
Sure.
is optimal, and,
Okay.
and no less than 3 to 4.
Right. And I mean, this involves taking accountability for your own health. So you get
Yes.
to decide, how quick do you want to do this? Do you want to do
Right.
this in, fewer sessions, or do you want to keep seeing me for extended periods of time? You decide, right?
Yes. And one of the things that I like to do is towards the very end of these sessions, I teach people how to do self hypnosis,
Beautiful.
because it's not that I don't love my clients to return, but return to me with something new. Okay. If
Hmm.
you need help on, my thing is to teach you to be able to help yourself. Okay. So when you start having certain feelings, now you have a library of recordings that I have recorded for you, because each week you get a fresh recording. Okay. We change it up because it's just like anything else. When you exercise, if you don't change, your body adjusts to it. Okay. So then it may not work as effectively all the time. Okay. So each week you do get a fresh recording. Okay. And we're doing something new. And as a coach, and I'm sure you may be familiar with this, I the framework that I use as a coach is the grow model. Okay, which is for goals, and then oh my goodness, I'm blanking. Grow goals, reality, okay, options, and then the way forward. Okay, that's an acronym. The grow. Okay, that's the grow model. So I base what I do as from a coaching perspective around that framework. Okay, and then along with that, then I bring in the hypnosis for a little more like a hypno coaching type of program.
Beautiful. And I feel like we all have coaches and teachers and all these things, and we can take from them what works for us or what we align
Right,
with, and then we
right,
begin to bring that to our clients. And for
right.
me, it's always the coaches and the teachers and the mentors who taught me to take it from here. It's
Mm-hmm.
not keep coming back to me, keep coming back to me
Right,
because
right,
you need me in order to resolve this issue. It's no, give me some tools and I'm the type of person that I'm going to do them because I
right,
I genuinely want to be free of this behavior, this pattern, or whatever it is. And
right.
so I continue to come back to this whole self-empowerment
Mm-hmm.
type, attitude. And we have to really ask ourselves, do I really want to resolve this issue? Because if I really do want to resolve this issue, then I also need to be willing to do the work that it's going to take to resolve
Exactly.
it. And so when you
Right,
have great coaches and teachers, then they're giving you what you need to do.
right,
They're
right.
giving you the opportunity to continue on, and then you come back when you need more support. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's not keep
Right,
coming back to me all the time so that I can hold you and do the work for you because I'm not going
right.
to. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of coach. I've done that before and it drains me.
Right.
So
And it's
you,
frustrating. It's
eh,
frustrating for you as the coach, but then also for the client as well, because the client then feels so dependent on you. And it's like,
yes,
no, I want to teach you, it's what is that? Teach a man to fish. Okay. Now he knows, the
right.
fish can feed himself at any time.
Exactly.
It doesn't have
Exactly.
to come, for the one prepared meal. So
Yes.
that is the whole basis behind this.
Beautiful. I love that. So I have a question for you about proper sleep hygiene, because that's something that had come up for me in the journey, and I definitely work with when I'm coaching clients with sleep hygiene, because a lot of people probably don't even know what that term means right now.
No,
Um,
right.
for number one, and number two, when we look at what, the average kind of proper sleep hygiene entails, there are probably a lot of people who are doing maybe the opposite or not doing things that would be very, very helpful, even just in the beginning, to change their sleep routines. Can
Mm-hmm.
you give us some tips about good sleep hygiene, Keisha?
Well, for one thing, definitely, kind of, first of all, not eating late. Okay. Try to really, if you can, like that whole golden rule of not eating past 7, like there is a reason for that,
Yes.
people. There is a
Yes.
reason. Okay. So try not to eat after 7. I know things happen, but try
Can,
hard not to.
can we tell them why? Because of the fact that your body needs to take all of that energy to process the
Exactly.
food,
And
and
begin the
then
digestion process.
exactly. And it's going to
Right.
divert energy away that will be able to be used for cellular activity and repair and
Exactly.
all of these things. I
Exactly.
find for me, when I know why something happens, I'm like, oh, okay, then I'll think twice about that, late night chip
Eating
snack
that
for
that
me.
binge, that
Yes,
eating binge. Exactly.
exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, so number
Exactly.
one.
And then of course, also, you may want to, lessen the alcohol, okay, as well. Now, because I know people are thinking like, okay, well, when you drink, you really kind of just zonk out. But that's not really restorative sleep, though. You know what I mean? I'm
Yes.
not saying that you cannot have a glass of wine. I would never say that. I enjoy a glass of wine. Okay, I'm not going to say that. But I mean, where you're at the point where you're kind of drinking yourself, quote unquote, into like a coma. That's not restorative sleep at
Sure.
all. You're
Hmm.
zonking out, but it's not restorative. So you may
Hmm.
want to curtail that,
Sure.
as well. In addition, okay, don't exercise, late at night either. Okay. What I find for me personally, is if I exercise in the morning or even midday, that helps to tire me out. That regulates for me, exercise regulates my sleep cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I do that in the morning or, at least by mid morning or something like that, then by 8 or 9 o'clock, I'm beginning to kind of feel sleepy. Okay. And stop fighting it. I mean, we're adults, but, I've done it before. I almost all of a sudden I revert back to toddler like. I start, fighting sleep. It's like, who are
Mm-hmm.
you fighting sleep for? Girl,
Mm-hmm.
it's 9:01. Go to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
bed. Like, what are you doing?
I eat. That's when I eat. When
That's
I
when you
know I'm
want to
getting
eat.
tired,
Yeah, now
I
you want to
I
eat.
eat. So there's another connection that might help for somebody. Hang on a second. I know I'm getting tired. Okay, I'm gonna get like a sugar rush or something to wake
Right.
myself up.
We're just going to keep you up. Go ahead
Exactly.
and go to sleep.
Yes.
There is, listen, we all have busy lives the next day. Let's get out. And even if you don't, still get your proper sleep. If you feel yourself drifting and it's 9 o'clock at night, hey, go ahead, have at it, go to bed. Okay. And I think we all know, but I'm going to say it anyway, you know, turning off the TV, okay, and shelving the devices,
Mm-hmm.
for a while,
Yes.
Don't worry, they'll be there tomorrow. You
Right.
can go back to them tomorrow. But for that time period, for you to get some restorative sleep, shelve those, for the next time. Okay.
And turn
Uh,
them on to
yeah.
airplane mode. Like turn
Yeah,
them on to airplane mode. You don't need notifications coming through. You don't need
exactly.
you don't need the EMFs coming through.
Right, coming
Just
through.
and move it
Exactly.
away from your bedside. Like you don't need your
Exactly.
phone beside your head. Get it away.
Exactly. It's interesting. Some of the best days are when I literally have the phone on silent and I'm just going about my day. I don't
Yes.
hear the chime of someone constantly trying to get in contact or
Mm-hmm.
spam caller and all. Now, obviously, when you do that, you have to look at your calendar, make sure there's nothing important's coming in. But I mean, like, it's amazing how freeing that is.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some things, to do in terms of, getting ready to prepare, for sleep, make
Beautiful.
it, yeah, if you're going to take your shower, take it early on, or if you are going to take your shower, take a nice warm one to
Mm-hmm.
help you relax. I mean, there are all sorts of things. If you drink chamomile tea, something that is caffeine free, people,
Mm-hmm.
caffeine
For
free.
sure. For sure.
Okay. And also, too, one of the things that I'm going to mention, I look at this the same way as I do when it comes to the alcohol. I know that we have a lot of people out there that delve into cannabis,
Mm-hmm.
products. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a lot of it is, help is made to be able to help you sleep. Okay. But I think with me and my thought process is are you getting restorative sleep with that, or is it kind of almost similar to when you have alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
we're all adults here. I've had a gummy or two before in my lifetime. Okay, I have had a gummy or two and have, had them that are supposedly geared towards going to sleep, but it didn't work for me, and I left them alone. After trying them, I left them alone because, first of all, they dried out my body. Okay, I'd wake up and I'm really, really, really like thirst. Like I feel like my body has been dry all night. So I'm wondering, like, okay, is that going to do something wrong with the kidneys if you do this in a prolonged, for a prolonged period of time?
Sure.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and just again, it's like that zonk, you know what I mean? That heavy zonk out, and how, restorative is that,
Mm-hmm.
so, ultimately I fell back on, teachings and things that I knew from before. Okay, yeah, let me try my exercising again. Let me go for my walk around 9 in the morning, or get on my tread climber around 7, or, and knowing that if I do that for me, for my system, if I know that if I work out consistently, like 3 to 4 days, out of the week, I naturally will, that will naturally trigger my sleep cycle where I will go to bed at a decent hour.
Yeah, and I think that that's what it comes back to, Keisha, is we have to experiment and then learn what works for us. Because
Exactly.
what works for one person is going to be completely detrimental to another. And so
Exactly.
we have to play and navigate with,
Right.
what works for us. And I love when I talk about sleep hygiene, talking a lot about like almost like creating ambiance, right? So maybe you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
soft lighting, close the blinds. You don't you
Yes.
don't you don't want a whole bunch of like light coming in when you're
Right.
trying to sleep, right? I wear an eye mask a lot, right? And I turn a lot and everything when I sleep, but I've found that that eye mask can help me like
Mm.
and especially if I need to catch an extra couple of hours because I don't sleep well around the full moons and when different
Mm-hmm.
things energetically are going on for me, I
Mm-hmm.
make sure that eye mask is on so that I have those extra couple hours even once the sun has come up. And then, like you talked about, having a shower, a warm shower, a
Yeah.
bath, putting on, nice natural lotions that make you
Mm-hmm.
feel good, just getting your in warm, cozy blankets and these kinds of things, just like creating, like I do when, you're coming to a yoga studio or a yoga class, you're creating an ambiance, right? If you have
Mm-hmm.
essential oils, natural essential oils that you can diffuse into your room. So it becomes almost more of a ritual of
Yeah.
sleep, right? And you're honoring your body. You're honoring your body by falling into this deep, luxurious sleep, then you're creating the space for that.
Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So hopefully that helps um, people who are wondering, is my sleep hygiene good? Could it improve? And gives them some options to consider. And, even just experiment. Give yourself, 5 days or a week. Change some things that are manageable and then see where you're at. Grab a journal, right? How you
Yes.
feel the next day, right? I mean, you're
That's
not going to know
perfect.
unless you document things. So, for the last, years of my life, so many years, a teacher once told me, you're going to look back on this, Laura, and you're going to need to know this. You're going to need to remember this stuff because you won't remember where you came from because you'll
Right.
have, changed so much. And so, looking back on 10 years of journals, it's like, wow, how things can change. And would I remember every aspect of that or even close to it if I didn't record it? Absolutely not. So even committing to that for 7 days, let's say, and
Yeah.
seeing how you're feeling after that time, implementing three or four of those tips that Keisha's brought up, and just see how that feels.
Exactly. Exactly. Bottom line, just, like you were saying, uh, see what's best for you because what may work for one individual may not work for everyone else, but, kind of finding your rhythm. And then
Absolutely.
if that doesn't help, then go to, quote unquote, a sleep doctor. Go and have, get a sleep analysis done.
Hmm.
That is something that is very good too. Go to have that. They'll let you stay overnight and they monitor you, in terms of your sleep and REM, and they do all of that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's to a sleep center. So that is also something that is good to do.
Sure. And I would say, I'm not sure about you, I would say try those natural options that you
Yeah.
can do first, right? A lot of times we're trying to, and this was definitely me when I was going through my health issues, I realized I was giving my power away and I was like, here,
Mm-hmm.
fix me, here, fix me.
Mm-hmm.
When it was
Mm-hmm.
like, hang on a second, when I really pulled back, I realized, hang on a second, Laura, you have the capacity. You know some of the things that you need to do. So
Yeah.
instead of just saying, fix me, try what you can first. And if
Right.
that doesn't work, then you seek external supports.
Right. Right.
Absolutely, right? But if you know, hey, I haven't tried this, this, and this, don't go right away and ask somebody else for help. Do
Right.
what you can to help yourself first, and then
Exactly.
from there, you'll know whether or not that works, and then seek that additional support
Exactly.
and be open to
Exactly.
different supports, right? I mean,
Exactly.
for somebody it might be hypnosis, for somebody it might be, like you said, a sleep center, for somebody it might be learning to meditate, right?
Ex-
Learning
yes.
is a
Yes.
beautiful way to bring yourself inward in order to prepare for that silence of rest. So there's lots of
Exactly.
different avenues that we can explore. We just have to kind of take the blinders off in order to see that there's a lot more than maybe just say one or two providers can give you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
For sure. So,
Absolutely.
Keisha, is there anything else that you wanted to tell our listeners?
Well, yes. If they're interested and kind of getting in contact with me, I can be reached a couple of different ways. First, there is my website, which is www.321deepsleep.com. And then, of course, there is my email. There are two of them. First is my first name, Kisha, which is KISHA at 321deepsleep.com. And you know what? That probably is the best way to reach me. And then I'll be able to follow up with you there. If you're on my website, go to the contact page and be able to fill out your information. And then I'll be able to reply back to you. And I typically have about a 24-hour, response, time frame, sometimes before that, but no longer than 24 hours in which I'll be able to get back to you.
Excellent. And I'll make sure that I include that in the write-up for the podcast so that everybody has that information in case you didn't get it. Keisha, you don't need to see somebody in person, correct?
No, I am physically located in Philadelphia, but I work, all over. So I'm remote. So I can work with you remotely. As long as
Beautiful.
you're able to, kind of get on with Zoom or with Google, you're fine.
Okay, great. So in closing, I guess, if someone is out there who is listening, who is suffering right now with any BFRBs, who are struggling with sleep. What are maybe a couple of, initial recommendations that you would have for somebody that has just kind of begun to recognize that there may be some other options for them in the journey? Where would you recommend they start?
Well, if you are dealing with in terms of with a body focused repetitive behavior, there are a couple ways that you can go. You can come see someone like myself, which is a clinical, a hypnotherapist. You can go to a traditional, therapist, and more than likely they'll probably try more so like HRT or habit reversal, therapy. Okay, but there is no pill for that. So we were talking about, not having, a pill. There's literally no pill for it. So you can try one of those different options. Okay. Now we are both good in terms of hypnotherapy or, traditional, therapist, standalone. But where we really shine many times is if you combine the two, because what happens is from a hypnotherapy standpoint, I focus on the subconscious and the therapist, be it a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist, psychiatrist, mental health counselor, they focus on your waking state or where we are now. Okay. So together we are really come from like a two-prong approach, but using both modalities singularly or individually also works as well. The important thing is that you start with something quickly as soon as you can.
Great. Great. And then for people who have recognized, who are now recognized that they need some help with sleep,
When
where
it
do they begin?
Well, when you are talking about sleep, so starting to do those things that we initially talked about, watching, with the levels of caffeine that you are eating or drinking throughout the day.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh, Doing things like, maybe incorporating some exercise to try to help with your sleep cycle earlier in the morning. Don't do it at night. Some people,
Hmm.
it will keep you up because it gives you
Hmm.
energy at night.
Hmm.
Doing things like turning off devices, coming to see someone like me who is a hypnotherapist. Okay. I know there are other ways, but this is more holistic, and because the whole goal is to kind of keep you away from having to resort to sleeping pills. And again,
Hmm.
this is not to discount, pharmacology or anything like that, but trying to find another way of being able to help yourself instead of turning to a pill. Okay. So in the beginning, those are some things that I would say in terms of when you're talking about sleep, but definitely, kind of reaching out, to someone such as myself, or even a traditional therapist as well to maybe go into, okay, why is it that you don't feel safe in this? Is it because this unsafe feeling that you're having is rooted in trauma that you had when you were a child, like
Hmm.
unlocking that, okay, to the
Right.
point of being able to move through that. Okay, changing any distortions, that you have, or from a hypnotherapy perspective, we say known associations, changing those known associations and rewiring that mind, making it so that you know that sleep is means safe and rest equals safety, as opposed to it's something that, you feel fearful of and don't then want to shut your brain down for, so
Right.
things of that
Right.
sort. Yeah,
Thank you. Well, you've made a lot of really great associations too over the course of our conversation as well, because I would imagine there are a lot of people who likely haven't associated the fact that they're trying to go to sleep, but they could be in a fearful state.
exactly.
And because we comb over reasons and rationales and all of these things, but sometimes it's a lot deeper. So, making those, beginning with the tools that you have and then
Yes.
seeking supports of professionals, and I think also, I know in my own journey, I took a very kind of non-traditional holistic approach for the most part, other than needing medicine for certain things. And
Mm-hmm.
that was an investment in my health. And I find that a lot of people are hesitant to, oh, it's not covered under an insurance, it's not this. And I really would challenge people to change their perspectives on that, because
Yes.
if you don't have quality of life, in my experience, I remember when I wasn't able to use my physical body, when my mind and emotions were in a state of disaster, like there was no quality of life at all. And so it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. It didn't matter how much money was in the bank at that time
Right,
or any of
right.
those things, right? I just wanted to do what I needed to do to feel better. And so sometimes that involves, maybe foregoing one thing over another. Maybe you
Exactly.
don't go get your nails done and get your feet done. I have nothing against that. Don't get me
Right, of
wrong.
course,
Everybody
of
loves some
course.
pampering.
Yes.
But what if you invested in maybe a therapist, or some sort of holistic practitioner, whatever it is, who isn't covered under your traditional medical plan, just to see, right? I mean, these are the ways that sometimes we rationalize things to ourselves. Oh, that's not covered, so it's not valuable. But in my own experience and the amazing people that I've talked to, including Keisha today, like, it just because you're not free, or you're not maybe covered under a medical plan, does not mean that you are not providing a very valuable service. So please, keep that in mind. Anyone who's listening and, using that kind of, I almost feel like it's a bit of an excuse at times. I mean, I have people
Oh,
who have
yeah.
come to me and have said, and I will work with people. If people say, "Listen, Laura, I can't pay you right now. I'll work with you. Like, let's set up a payment plan. I would much rather you had my service and benefited and started to work with what you need to feel better, than to say, no, I need all this money up front and I'm not willing to work with you." That kind of thing, right?
Right.
There's always an option. So if you're working with an individual, a person, a practitioner who, in my opinion, has a big heart and understands the maybe the space that you're coming from, there's
Mm-hmm.
always ways to navigate the financial area, in my own experience.
And I agree with you there because that's one of the things I do. Like with my programs, I work with a wonderful company called Coach Financing, which is able to, you know, offer, people a network of different lenders that may that may adapt with them, you know, so like socioeconomically. Okay.
Beautiful.
And then if that doesn't work out, then I'm definitely open to doing payment plans,
Great.
so I don't want anyone to feel that, they can't benefit from my service because of the cost. I will work with you, on a payment plan. If, the coach financing options don't work, I definitely will do a payment plan. and
Beautiful.
and anybody who does, come through, as a client, as from listening to this, I will also give 10% off.
Amazing. There we
Yeah,
go. Thank you. Thank you, Keisha.
absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
amazing. Okay, so yeah, so hopefully you've made it this far in the podcast, because we had a great conversation today,
Yes,
and now you
yes.
know. that Keisha is also willing to work with you and offer you 10% off of her services, which is an amazing gift. So thank you, Keisha, today
Absolutely.
for our chat, for being real and authentic and sharing your experience and your knowledge and, all these tips for people to begin to just navigate their own issues that they are dealing with, maybe from a more compassionate perspective, knowing that others have been there and knowing that there are more people out there to support and help like you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a beautiful day. Chat soon, Keisha.
Okay. Bye
Bye
bye.
now.